Work? Yes. Okay, here we are at Ardent Studios what's the address again?
2000 Madison Avenue.
I know, 2000 Madison Avenue. How did I forget
Tennessee.
that? And we're in Memphis, Tennessee. Nancy Apple is with me. We're old friends and we've only met today.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Songbird and Rockabilly Queen of Memphis. I'm putting it that way, and that's what you are, my dear.
Well, thank you. I'll try to not let it go to my head.
So
let's see if I can get my big head through this door.
Well, you've got a nice hat on.
I'm going to give you the grand tour.
Give me the grand tour, and tell me before we do what you do for Ardent yourself.
I'm the manager.
You're the manager of the studio.
Also social media wrangler.
Yeah.
So you'll have to let me.
So you're bringing them in and sending it out.
Yeah.
Trying
to. We're always hustling up more business. That's studio life.
Well, look at this business here.
Yeah. Well, this gentleman right here, John Fry, started Ardent out of his garage when he was just 14 years old.
Yeah.
And his partner was none other than Fred Smith, who went on to figure out how to ship packages overnight for a whole lot of money.
Nice.
He founded FedEx.
So that's the background of Ardent. Is this a kind of
not really.
offshoot?
No, not really. They were just teenage friends.
Okay.
And so they decided that they'd make some records together.
Yeah.
Hey there, Ari. How are you? We got a package for you. But anyway, he was just a genius.
Yeah.
And at 14 years old, he started this.
14.
And then in 1966, we moved to the very first physical location of Ardent, which this is some of the original gear from the National Street location.
Okay.
Of course, these are some of the projects we've worked on. Stevie Ray Vaughan and brother doing the Family album.
Yeah.
Steve Earle did Copperhead Road.
He did Copperhead Road.
Gin Blossom, Skillet, Three Doors Down.
Stop, I'm
Aaron
quivering.
Tippin,
Stop.
Little Texas. I mean, just the history of Ardent can go on for miles and miles. That gentleman right over there, he's a hotshot producer named Ari Morris. You could look him up. He's worked with some of the biggest hip-hop names in the world.
Wow.
And we go around the corner, we got our beautiful atrium, which is getting brand new gutters, so pardon our progress there, but...
this is all very light and airy.
Yes, the area is completely... Yeah, I'll give you one of those. That's the Big Star store.
Yeah, but he's a friend of mine that does these rock family trees. And Pete Frame, his name. He lives in the Highlands of Scotland.
Oh, great.
And comes to our house concerts, Nancy.
Wow.
I would love one of those. Thank you.
Yes, I'll hook you up.
Pete Frame.
I know the girl who has them.
Yeah.
This is a photo of the original location of Ardent, which is on National Street by the National Cemetery here in Memphis.
Yeah.
And it's now, I guess maybe you'd call it a bodega. It's been everything from a daycare center to a little convenience store. These are pictures of some of the original gear.
Yeah.
Of course, Mr. Fry, as a young band, this was in celebration of our 40th anniversary.
Circa what year?
This was 1966.
66.
The studio itself is 52 years old.
Nice.
And this was a poster from when we turned 40. And just more photos.
Yeah.
Step right in here. This is called our APS room, which is Audio Production Suite. This is where a lot of rappers, hip-hoppers, people that work with tracks come and record their projects.
Very nice.
It is very nice.
Very
it's
nice.
Intimate. We keep it dark. Clients like it dark and moody. A little isolation booth over there.
Cool. Very
cool. Just follow me. I'm going to step right in front of you. This
Please
is our conference room. That's my office over there.
Oh, man. Nancy's office.
I call it the fishbowl. Well, here, let's go on in the office. I call it the fishbowl. My my fish.
And you've got Woody on the wall. We're just talking about Woody.
Yeah, my Woody Guthrie I drew that I drag around. This is some of my art that I do.
Yeah.
Just filling up the space and
Beautiful.
and my desk, as you can see, I've got a lot going on.
You've got it all going on.
And cheese crackers to boot.
And you got a guitar handy if you need it, eh?
Yeah. Of course. Still have my Valentine's Day flowers. Isn't that great that they've lasted so long?
Have you still got your Valentine now?
Of course.
Good girl.
He's not going anywhere. These are some photos of the Studio A when it was first built here. Again, John Fry is a young man.
Nice.
That's the ladies' room. And that's the men's room.
Well,
of course, we are associated with
what is
Stax.
this association? I haven't quite.
Well, when John
that.
Fry moved into the first physical location, he really liked the sound coming out of Stax, so he bought the same gear. And in fact, when Stax closed and then they reopened as the American Museum of Soul Music, they didn't have any of their old gear.
You had a replica of all that gear.
We donated our old gear to Stax.
Nice.
This is our little lounge area. Again, we love our atrium. It's a nice area of a retreat. I'll show you Studio A real quick. We have a worker in there. Otherwise, I couldn't show you because we have a session in progress.
Okay.
But since this guy is trying to fix something, a little sound problem in the...
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll tell you all this after we go in.
Okay.
This is Studio A. I hope it's okay. I brought a friend of mine from Scotland in to since the session.
Rob Allen. Nice to meet you, Michael. This is a dream for me.
Too far north, huh?
Yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah, well, not for me,
We
not
never
for
knew whether
most.
my grandfather was from Scotland or Ireland.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Well, mine was from Wales, so.
Well, we speak to the Welsh as well. It's
Absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
Well, just a heads up, he is Facebook Live. So.
I'm doing a live thing. I hope you don't mind. People are watching. This is marvelous.
Yeah, this is a Neve. There, you don't see very many of these in the world.
Yeah.
We work digitally and analogically. We still have a nice deck out there for clients to hang out.
On a nicer day.
Yeah, on a nicer day. We don't allow smoking anywhere in the building, so.
Okay.
And since they're just in standstill, we can go in here right now.
Thank you very much.
No, not right now. Not right now.
No, I'm
We're
sorry.
getting things set up for.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
You can come around. Well,
No, we're good.
That
We're
might
fine.
that
We're
might-
fine. Thanks for your time, guys.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
Very cool. Thank you.
And we'll go through here. This is extra storage. This was the Mellotron from the Big Star session.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
And over here, our foosball table.
Of course.
Of course. That goes to some
Fundamental.
back offices and
This is
down this hallway. I'll show
beautifully
you
appointed, eh?
Studio C. The building goes on and on.
Yeah. Albert King.
Let me make sure it's okay to step
Okay,
in. I'll be right back.
I'll just look at some of these. Leon Russell. ZZ Top. Sam
All
and
right, we
Dave.
can go on in.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Yes. This is the tracking room. A lot of people call this the ZZ Top Suite because.
I would just notice the. And how many albums does ZZ Top do here?
Gosh, I forget.
Just
6,
all of them?
7,
All,
10.
all the early
A
ones.
bunch. How about a bunch?
How many times have I listened to those albums and here's where it was done?
Billy Gibbons helped give some ideas for this room.
Yeah.
We did so much work with ZZ back in the days.
Yeah.
There's light switches way up at the top. Well, I mean electrical outlets, not light
Nice.
switches.
Nice.
Electrical outlets up there because Billy used to like to hang lights and neon signs down
Ah,
there while he was working. And let me bring you in here. I'll introduce you to our chief engineer.
Thank you.
This is Adam Pearle.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
He's our
good,
chief engineer. This
Adam.
is Rob Ellen from Scotland. We're old friends.
It's a distinct pleasure to meet
Hey,
you.
good to meet you. Welcome.
We
Thank
just
you.
met in person for the first time
We've been
today.
talking about music and got mutual friends everywhere.
Yeah,
and
he's my...
I've been trying to prize her out of this place to come to Scotland for as
Yeah.
long as I can imagine.
some gigs. So
Yeah.
now
I got
that
to
you
visit once. I went and did some pre-production with the Scruffs. I don't know if you've ever
The,
heard
the
of
Scrouts.
them,
the
but the
Scruffs,
Scruffs. They were out of Memphis, but the front guy spent a lot of time. He lived in Edinburgh
All right.
and recorded at Savah
Oh yeah, I know Savannah
with
very
Jeff
well.
Allen.
Yeah.
Jeff came here and did
Yeah.
some work.
Well, you're in at the top level in Scotland as well, there. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was great. I got to go over there and we did pre-production
Yeah.
at Banana Row, and there was a nice pub between his flat and Banana Row. So I got to see a little. We went to Glasgow one
Yeah.
night, so I got to see a little bit.
Nice.
I was there. I loved it over
Well, you
there.
need to get to the Highlands. It opens up.
Next
and
time
it's
I'll do that.
spectacular.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, you got a
Adam-
friend if you can.
Adam also plays in a band here in town. He's one of Memphis's flashiest guitar players. He's pretty modest about it.
That's hard. That's hard to beat. Man, there's some musicians in this town.
There's
Where,
a lot of
where do you
amazing
play?
musicians. We gig about once a month. It's a cover band.
Okay.
You know, we do like the Cure and the Cult.
Oh, nice.
And, some
That's a
Bowie
surprise.
and
Cool.
you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's fun, and they usually get paid
Yeah.
pretty good. So. And I ended up playing on stuff I work on every once in a while
Ah,
too.
cool.
So
Nice.
I'm still in the game.
What are you working on just now?
Oh, I'm just playing. I'm just streaming some music. We're doing some maintenance. We've got some microphones that need to be repaired that we're shipping off to get back in working conditions. So. And I was mixing here last night and the day before doing some stuff.
Nice.
So I've kind of got my mess laid out. I need to clean it up a little bit.
And the next session, if you don't mind me asking?
What is the next thing I got going? Well, I was with the singer-songwriter guy
Yeah.
that moved his session. So
Yeah.
that's the next thing on the books. We do, like last night I was doing some mixing with a guy who does really nice acoustic guitar, kind of instrumental stuff. And then the day before I was working with a guy named Mario Monterosso from Italy.
Nice.
He had cut some stuff live at Sun, and we mixed it here. That's why I got the tape slap out.
He's having a good time there.
Oh
eh?
yeah, it sounded great. It sounded like a damn Carl Perkins record because
Really?
we mixed it in mono. We didn't EQ it a whole lot, and we got the slapback going.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
It was a lot of
Fantastic.
fun.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. How long are you in town?
Just today, we go to Nashville tomorrow.
Right
I'm
on.
hooking up with Will Kimbrough and Tommy Womack for Music City Roots,
Yeah,
the
cool.
TV
Sweet.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, very sweet. So I'm having the best of times. What my story is, I travel around doing to encourage house concerts across Europe. I live in a van, so I had the idea that we could possibly do the same because Americans parachute in and then we'll go off around Ireland or do
Right,
stuff
yeah.
like that. So I had the idea that we could maybe get a van in America to do exactly the same and started crowdfunding it. And it arrived. We've got this out there. We've
Nice.
We've got a van to do it.
Good.
So
Great.
we're doing the.
That's a great way to see America. Man.
It's-
You know.
And to fall into such company and to get the low down
Sorry
in
about
places.
Trump.
I've got a photo with a car this morning that just had "fuck Trump" across the
Good.
back.
I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that.
Well, he's insane.
Yeah. Did you? Well,
No, we won't get into it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, God bless
Every
you.
day though.
Yeah. God bless you.
Good to meet you.
And the
Good luck
Scots,
with your
and the
travels.
Scots fell out with Donald Trump before anybody else.
Right,
And
the
it's
golf course.
Yeah, over the
right?
golf courses. That's right.
If you get a chance, you should head south into New Orleans as well.
I know. I want to go down that. What's the name of the road? The
Natchez Trace.
Natchez Trace. I want to travel that road. That's
yeah,
that's
it's
where.
not the quick way, but if you're not in a hurry, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And we're being invited to Muscle shows as well, so we're going to go and do all that.
that's definitely a good stop too. So.
All right, well,
Thank you, Adam.
good luck with your work.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure to meet you, man.
Indeed.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Fantastic, Nancy.
Yeah, well, let's go
Really.
around this way. I got one more suite to show you, and then
Just stop.
I've got to get some work done
Yeah,
for my
I'll
gig.
let you get back to work.
Um,
So Led Zeppelin 3 was recorded here.
it was mixed here, yes.
It was mixed. That's the first album I owned for myself.
Wow,
There you are.
wow.
I think my mum bought me that one, but for Christmas. Wow. Unbelievable.
Snake Moan, something we did here. Hustle and Flow. That won an Oscar for the music.
Wow.
And I'm going to show you this suite here.
Okay.
Unlock it. Oh, it's already unlocked. Great. This is our Studio B. Now, it gets compared oftentimes to Abbey Road and over your direction of the world because a lot of the equipment in here is similar. John Fry, who founded the company, as I mentioned, he, as a young man, would take pieces of outboard gear and he would modify them. You know how we soup up your automobiles?
Yeah.
He would do the same thing
He was
to
an
outboard gear.
electronic genius.
And
yeah.
at the same time that he was doing this, Mr. Martin, who's working with the Beatles, was doing the same modifications to the same pieces of equipment, but they never knew about it.
Is that right?
Until later when the Beatles, all their secrets were published in a book.
Yeah. But he was on the same trail.
Yeah, on the same trail, definitely.
Wow.
But yeah, so this is Studio B. It's
all analog, eh?
Yeah, well, we got analog and digital.
Yeah.
Every room can be a mix and match of both. Only room with the lava lamps.
Well,
Come here, I'll show you something very special. In the tracking room, this is where Jody Stevens keeps his drums that he used for many of the Big Star sessions.
Nice. My brother would freak over that. He restores old drum kits. Takes a pleasure in Ludwig's, of course, but, and Premier as well.
Well,
So,
cool.
Mark, you got to tell us all about this one. I'm going to take you around it. Look at the finish on that. It's beautiful. And we met Jody earlier on in the hall.
Yeah, and then we'll just go and head this way. And we end up where we started. So that is the Nickel Tour. And I've got to get some work done.
Give us a hug before you go.
Before
Thank
I
you
head
so
to my
much,
gig.
my dear. And looking forward to the gig. We're going to go and follow Nancy on the singing tour of Beal Street and downtown Memphis.
Yes. All right.
Thanks for joining us, guys. What
All right,
time
yeah,
should...
come see. But I gave you those shakers so that y'all can join in and be part of the band. Some of y'all are going to go on to Sun Studio when we get done with the regular Mojo tour, but we'll be back here on Beal in about an hour and a half. Shake that thing. Come on now. Shake that thing. Oh, now Larry's going to drive. I'm going to sing. Now, what are y'all going to do? Yeah, you better shake that thing. Here we go. Let's shake her alley rope. Come on, shake her alley rope. We're gonna shake her alley rope. Let's shake her alley rope. All you want is right. Save your doggone soul. Alright, any of y'all ever heard a Gibson guitar? Yeah. Alright, on my side of the bus, you're looking at the back side of the Gibson guitar factory. I would have pointed out the side that had the sign on it, but I was busy singing. Apologies. So you get to look at the musician's entrance, the back warehouse kitchen entrance. They got two Gibson factories in America. One's in Montana, and one of them is right here in Memphis. In Montana, they build acoustic guitars kind of like this one right here. And in Memphis, we build the B.B. King Lucille model guitar. And in Montana, they don't let you tour the plant because I think they're doing some kind of rocket science on those guitars, if you ask me personally. But down here, they love it when you take a tour of the Gibson plant. And the street that we're turning onto is called B.B. King Boulevard. So in honor of B.B. and Gibson and the fact that he make his guitars, I'm going to sing the Mississippi verse where B.B. came from. I like a Mississippi bulldog sitting on a hollow stump. I'm like a Mississippi bulldog sitting on a hollow stump. Oh man, there's so many flies, I don't know which way to jump. All right, let's practice a big show-stopping ending. All right, y'all doing pretty good. My friend Rob Ellen over there has a roll of paper towels, and he will demonstrate to you all how to use them on the windows. Over here, ladies and gentlemen, we got FedEx Forum. Next door to it is the Rock and Soul Museum. Of course, the FedEx Forum, we got a basketball team that's where they have their games. The Memphis Grizzlies is our team, and we are proud of our basketball guys. And, of course, FedEx Forum was built by FedEx, and FedEx is a Memphis-founded company. They also have concerts in there. Some of the cool folks that will be performing in there in the near future. Local boy Justin Timberlake. Over here we have a very wet W.C. Handy Park. Not a good day to go sunbathing there, I must say. But W.C. Handy Park is named after W.C. Handy. He is the father of the blues, and he got that title because he wrote the very first blues song that was ever published in sheet music form. He had it printed up, and anybody that could read those notes was able to play those Memphis blues that he wrote. Now, if you walk towards the end of Beal Street, you're going to see W.C. Handy's house, and it's an old shotgun house. It's been converted to a W.C. Handy museum. You've got some of his original artifacts in there, some of his personal items. It's really cool. And across the street from his house is the First Baptist Church of Beal Street. So if you ever are here on a Saturday night and you get liquored up too much on Saturday night, walk on down to the First Baptist Church on Sunday morning. They can church you up really good to kind of even things out. Behind the church is Robert Church Park. That's where all the blues actually began on Beal Street. All the musicians hanging out there about 100 years ago, having little impromptu jam sessions. They call them mojo sessions, and the whole expression, I got my mojo working, started right there at Robert Church Park. Now, what makes the park even cooler than all that is Robert Church himself. He didn't like the fact that across town there's a park that used to only allow white people. He said, no, that's not right. So he bought that land and donated it to the city of Memphis so that anybody can hang out there. But what even makes it cooler was Robert Church himself. He was the first black man in the South that was a former slave to become a millionaire. And when he became wealthy, he did a lot of good with his money for not just himself, but everyone. Of course, who knows if that park did not exist, if we would even have Beal Street as it is today. All the musicians, at the end of the day, whoever won out on the mojo sessions would be the guy that got that gig at Pee Wee's Saloon. So Robert Church Park, very instrumental in the whole development of the blues. And over here, let's see, I can even do it without a paper towel. Let me demonstrate the hand version. Over here we have the world famous Peabody Hotel, probably best known for the livestock that they have living up on the roof. They got ducks that live at the hotel. And those are celebrity ducks. Every day, did you see them? Every day the ducks are woken up by their duck caretaker, who has the title as Duck Grandmaster. He feeds them a hearty breakfast, which I imagine is something like Purina duck chow. And then he gets them off to work. Now their job is he herds them to the elevator. While they're on the elevator, unless you are a celebrity, you cannot ride with those ducks. Kind of think of them like Bob Dylan ducks, you know. Do not look them directly in the eyes. You know. They get to the lobby level, the doors open, and lo and behold, there's been a red carpet rolled out for the ducks. And people from all over the world, it sounds like you were there, Rob?
It's focal lengths I had.
Okay, yeah. Well, those ducks, people from all over the world come to see those ducks do the duck walk between the elevator and the fountain in the lobby bar. Now, I'm sure they heard of Chuck Berry before, but this duck walk is about as popular. It all started because there was a man that worked at the Peabody years ago. He was a sports enthusiast and he went hunting a lot, and his favorite was duck hunting. Back in those days, he had live ducks as his decoys. Well, he went hunting one day, no luck at all. I guess he was out there all day in the freezing cold, might have even been raining, and since he had no luck, he decided to stop at the Peabody, the office, so to speak, on his way home and have a nightcap. Well, he must have really been bummed out because one nightcap led to several, and he didn't need to drive home, so he got himself a room for the night. But, you know, he did have those ducks with him, so what's he supposed to do with those things? After all the guests had looked like they had retired for the evening in their rooms, he snuck the ducks in. He was a bit of a prankster, and he put them in the fountain. Now, I guess he figured, well, no harm, no foul. He was figuring that he'd get up before anyone else did and get the ducks home, right? But have you ever drank a little bit too much one night to where you felt like sleeping in the next morning? Yep. And that's exactly what he did. By the time he woke up to retrieve the ducks, well, they had, it wasn't a secret anymore. They had a bunch of gawkers there looking at those ducks, and including the boss. He figured he'd get fired, but instead he was congratulated because the boss thought, what a great idea. Look, everybody loves the ducks. Let's keep doing this. So, in honor of the fact that they have ducks marching twice a day to and from work, they do not serve duck on any of the menus at the restaurants in there. That would just be so wrong. On either side of that doorway, there's a store called Lansky's. They got some cool stuff in there. They used to be located on Beal Street, and a young man by the name of Elvis used to walk by and was the world's most serious window shopper. He never went in, but one day Mr. Lansky came out and said, son, I see you looking all the time. You ever going to come in and buy something? And Elvis said, I just don't have the money, but one of these days I'm going to come in here and buy everything because I love it all. Mr. Lansky was so taken by Elvis's Elvisness, he invited him in, let him try on some clothes, and eventually extended him a line of credit. All his first stage clothes were bought at Lansky's. Yeah. They called them cat clothes in those days, and they catered mainly to the Beal Street musicians. Elvis liked that style, even though it was a little different than his peers at school, but Elvis always was a little bit different than everybody else. Elvis and Mr. Lansky remained friends, very good friends throughout both of their lives. Now, Elvis had his prom at the Peabody. It was on the mezzanine level in one of the grand ballrooms. And get this, the young girl that he brought with him to the prom spent $12 on a homemade dress. And I imagine she's thinking she'll be dancing in his arms all night, right? Well, he sat her down at a table, went and got each of them a Coke, and then they stared at one another. Didn't dance at all. Finally, Elvis said, I'm sorry, I don't dance. Now, they asked him years later, how come he didn't try to dance with her? And he said, well, how was I supposed to when they were playing stuff like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? I guess that wasn't cool enough. Now, y'all check this out, a historical marker. We can't stop because there's a truck that didn't get the memo. We were going to park right there today. That historical marker points out WDIA radio. They were the very first all-black format radio station in the nation. They played blues and R&B music at a time when radio was pretty much dominated by stuff like the Grand Ole Opry, some of the old-time gospel, some of the big band music. But those guys, you know, that music had a little bit more of a soulful groove to it. They had electric guitars, they had bass guitars and drums, and I tell you, the young white kids loved listening to that station, but it was considered race music back in those days. So mom and dad, for the most part, didn't want them tuning in. We had a little invention called a transistor radio, though, back in those days, and they came tiny. You could listen to whatever you felt like. Mom and pop didn't have to know. Over here on the corner, we got the Cotton Exchange building of Memphis. Now, Memphis has a lot of kings. You know, B.B. King used to be a DJ over there at WDIA, along with Rufus Thomas, Mr. Walking the Dog himself. But Cotton was the first king in the South. This is the Cotton Exchange Museum, Cotton Exchange building of Memphis, and the Cotton Museum is on the lobby level. Cotton definitely was the first cash crop here in the South. Cotton was, and to some people still is, king of the South. This area, we still refer to it as Cotton Row. During the fall, during the old days, there was so much cotton being traded that it looked like it was snowing here in Memphis with all those cotton balls in the air. It came up and down the Mississippi River. If you look this way, and assuming you don't have a fogged up window, you'll get a glimpse of the river through some of these side streets. Now, that Mississippi River, this area was first explored by Hernando de Soto. Great explorer that you probably forgot about because we all learned about him in grade school. But he's the guy that first charted this part of the country. He discovered where the highest bluff on the lower level of the Mississippi. It's also the widest section of the Mississippi River. It's 1 mile. You don't want to try to swim it from here to West Memphis. No. It's as turbulent and scary as all those legends that you've heard about. Although they did open a pedestrian walkway on the south side of town, you can literally walk from here to West Memphis, Arkansas. It's a great view of the river. It's a great exercise program. I kind of like to walk across and walk a little further to Pancho's, my favorite little Mexican restaurant over there. Get me some cheese dip, and then I'll walk back to work it up. That's my exercise program. Now, you think because we're so high and wide on the Mississippi that we'd be safe from flooding, but this street below us, Riverside Drive, was underwater in 2011. The last time that happened was in 1927, and Memphis Minnie sat down and wrote a song about what they called the Great Flood of the Century. If it keeps on raining, the levee gonna break. If it keeps on raining, the levee's gonna break. All those people won't have no place to stay. All right, now that song, do the lyrics sound a little familiar? You might be thinking of the Led Zeppelin version.
Yeah.
They mixed that song right here in Memphis, and I'll show you where in a little bit. Memphis Minnie was really cool. They used to say she played guitar like a man, which was a big compliment back in those days. Now, this park is called the Fourth Bluff, formerly known as Battle of Memphis Park, formerly known as Confederate Park. We like to confuse people and call things by more than one name. If you're driving around the city and the streets just kind of change while you haven't gone anywhere, it's just a Memphis thing. They do it a lot. And we used to do it with our parks. Now, this park was the site during the Civil War where the Battle of Memphis was held. That direction towards the edge of the bluff, there's some Civil War era cannons. On my side of that pillar there, you could see a stone wall. It used to go all the way across. It was built by the soldiers, but it's receded over time. And it protected them as they fired their guns on a couple boats that were down on the river below. Now, that pillar used to be where a statue of Jefferson Davis was, who was the president of the Confederacy. But Memphis, in a recent trying to get with the new millennium, took down that statue along with a couple other Civil War era references here in town, and a lot of folks, I personally am pretty happy about it. But this site right here, could you imagine a battle going on right here? But it was during the Civil War, so we didn't have Facebook. We didn't even have CNN. I don't think we had television or radio. In fact, I know for a fact we didn't. But folks, we're starved for entertainment. We didn't have a basketball team. We didn't even have wrestlers back in those days. Folks gathered because they got word there'd be a battle. And they showed up. And this area was still grassy it wasn't a parking lot to that hotel, and they showed up to watch the Battle of Memphis as it's occurring in real time, bringing picnic baskets and blankets, and there wasn't even KFC to bring buckets of chicken, so I guess they had to fry it up themselves. But could you imagine sitting across, watching bullets flying overhead? Yep, they used to do that for entertainment here in Memphis. It was almost like a basketball game. The South lost, the North won. The North only had one casualty. The battle only lasted 90 minutes. That poor guy that was barely scraped up from the North, well, they sent him to the infirmary. He ends up catching the measles, and he died 2 weeks later. And the South was like, well, it wasn't a total of us because we did get that one guy. And they started being all braggadocious about it, saying, well, that they had meant to do that was the first experimentation in germ warfare with that measles outbreak. But Southern people just brag a lot about anything. So I'm going to brag about that monorail right now. It takes you to Mud Island. It's a little island right off of Memphis. It almost feels like a Disneyland housing theme park. It's just beautiful homes. They've got a river museum over there, and it's a nice little place to visit. But that monorail's in the Guinness Book of Records because it's the longest single-cabled, curved, concrete, and steel, brown, underhanging monorail in the world that was ever featured in a motion picture. It was in The Firm with Tom Cruise and Gene Hackman. They had a pretty intense chase scene on that movie. If you rent it when you get home, you'll feel like, oh yeah, I've been there. That bridge, it's called the Hernando de Soto Bridge. It lights up at night, looks like it's got rhinestones, and some folks have started calling it the Dolly Parton Bridge. Can't quite figure out why. And behind my head, can you see through the fog that big old pyramid? That pyramid is the third largest man-made pyramid in the world, and it's now the largest Bass Pro Shop. If you like sports, you would just love it in there. They've got an indoor swamp complete with alligators and cypress trees. They've got the world's tallest indoor freestanding elevator. They're proud of it. They're going to charge you $10 to ride to the observation deck. They've got a big, fancy lodge-type hotel. I mean, really fancy, like up in the mountains at a ski lodge, And they've got restaurants. They got a bowling alley. Seriously, if you like sports, it's like a sportsman's Disneyland. But if you have a fear of taxidermy and wood paneling, do not go near the place. You would not enjoy it. This building right here, it's our convention center, but I'm going to refer to it by its old name, Ellis Auditorium. Now, they have a place called the Nashville Auditorium, the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. You probably heard of the Ryman. It's a great place to see a concert, and it's got a reputation known as the first church of country music. Well, this had a reputation as being our Memphis equivalent. It was called Ellis Auditorium back in the day. This was the first church of gospel music. It was inside that building where gospel music for the very first time was ever put on like a concert. Prior to the shows there on Saturday night that were sponsored by WDIA Radio, gospel music was only in the churches. They had folks like Mahalia Jackson showing up, the Blackwood Brothers. I mean, just the biggest names in gospel performing right there. The thing about those artists, they were showing the young rock and rollers how to put on a good show. They traveled with tour buses. They had entourages, wardrobe changes. A young Elvis Presley used to hang out at the entrance and hope that they picked him to be the kid that they would let in for free if he would sell candy in the concessions. The other young white kids that wanted to go to these shows had to beg mom and dad because it was sponsored by that race radio station. I don't know why, but back in those days, the parents just thought that it would, damage their little darlings by listening to that music. But the kids, they were smarter than mom and dad for the most part, because they would say, I don't know what the big deal is. It's like going to church, but on Saturday night, and they got popcorn. next thing you know, the folks are giving them the keys to the car, and they're in there raising hell in the name of Jesus. So I'm going to take y'all to church for a minute. This little light of mine, yeah, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Okay, I noticed that there's a lot of people from out of town here today, so I want to point something out very important. Over there, that's our jailhouse. Us locals call it the Glamour Slammer. You don't want to go to the Glamour Slammer, I'm telling you. And right over here is the church. So you can go straight from the jailhouse to church in Memphis, Tennessee. You don't want to though. Number 47 said to number 3, well, yo, excuse jailbird ever did see. I sure be delighted with your company to come on to jailhouse. Rock with me, let's rock. Come on, y'all. Everybody, let's rock. Oh, everybody in my hotel choir dancing to the jailhouse rock. All right, let's go back to church. Jesus on the main line. Doing what you want.
Oh, Lord,
Jesus on the main line. Doing what you want. Jesus on the main line. Doing what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Here we go. Everybody sing amen. Come on. Amen. 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 One more time. Amen. 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 All right, who has a tambourine? Come on and shake that tambourine like you go to Al Green's church. Come on. All right, amen, hallelujah. If you get a chance to ever go to Reverend Green's church, it's on Hale Road, right near Graceland. I highly recommend it. Over here, you might want to clear off those fogged windows so everybody can see, but y'all follow your eyes right along this wall, leading to the 2 windows that face the bus closest to that corner. That was Elvis's old house.
Oh, wow.
Elvis used to walk from here to Ellis Auditorium. This used to be, well, it's called Uptown now. It's nicer apartments. The apartment that was once Elvis's is the only one that you can rent out by the night, and they got it decorated in retro furniture. So when you're in there, you feel like you're house sitting for Elvis. I actually stayed there in November. It's quite a unique experience, and I'd say put that on your bucket list. Rent that room for a night if you're a Memphis music lover. Now, Elvis moved here when he was 13 years old from living in a 2-room shotgun house down in Tupelo, Mississippi. The far left windows, the wider one, was his living room, and the one right next door to it was Elvis's bedroom. Now, in Tupelo, they had hardly any privacy. Could you imagine? They go from 2 rooms to 4 rooms. Elvis has his own bedroom door he could shut at night, but it wasn't that private because he shared it with Grandma when he first moved in there. And it wasn't that fancy because this was actually the very first successful housing project in Memphis. It was called Lauderdale Courts. Family had to make $2,000 or less the whole year just to qualify to live there. So that, my friends, is not a whole lot of money to get by for a whole year. That's about musician's salary, actually. Other musicians lived in this apartment complex along with Elvis, like Johnny Cash's guitar player, Luther Perkins, folks from the Billy Burnett Band, from the Bill Black Combo. Old friend of mine by the name of Louis Paul was Elvis's neighbor, and Louis claimed that he helped Elvis learn how to play guitar, and he grew up to be the leader of a band called the Guillotines. And on the other side of this bridge, same street as Elvis, there was a boarding house. And guess who was Elvis's neighbor? Mr. B.B. King. But back in those days, he went by the name Riley B. King. I'm going to tell you about Riley, BB, Mr. Beal Street Blues Boy, after I talk about this over here. This is Danny Thomas's St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Now, Danny founded that, I think it was around 1960. He was a famous actor, and he wasn't always famous. He had his lean years, and he thought he'd never make it. So he was a faithful, religious man, and he made a vow that if he ever became successful, he would build a shrine to St. Jude. And that's exactly what that is. It's a children's hospital. They never turn kids away. They see kids free of charge, and kids from all over the world. I mean, kids from New Zealand, from Scotland, from Kalamazoo, Michigan, everywhere are treated there at St. Jude. Now, those folks that come in from out of town are often assisted with travel arrangements, grants to help pay for that. They are provided food and shelter right here at the Ronald McDonald House that you're going to see as we turn this corner. Ronald McDonald House and St. Jude work hand in hand. Of course, Danny's daughter Marlo has overseen the fundraising efforts of St. Jude nowadays. You're going to see her on an infomercial, I'm sure, at one time or another, and they really do a lot of good work here in town. We also have Levanter's Children's Research Hospital, another great hospital that helps kids, and just a couple of really cool things about Memphis. The street that we're going to turn onto is called Danny Thomas Boulevard. I remember when it changed to this name as a little kid. There was a parade, there was balloons, and Danny was in town, and people ask, why did Danny put St. Jude here in Memphis? And really, there is no good reason whatsoever. None, except he had no idea where he should put it. And as I said, he was a religious, faithful man. And he turned to the counsel of his cardinal, and his cardinal said, well, you know, I've always liked Memphis. It's kind of right in the middle of the country. They've got beautiful flowering trees in the springtime. They've got fair climate, and the people are very nice. And Danny says, well, that works for me. And that's how we have St. Jude. As simple as that. Over here, you're going to see there's a great playground for the kids that visit the Ronald McDonald House. You can see the other side of Lauderdale Courts, which is now called Uptown. Let me finish telling you a little bit more about Mr. B.B. King, though. He came to Memphis a couple different times. First time he was a young man, and he traveled up Highway 61 hitchhiking with his guitar. Does that story sound familiar? Man. Well, of course, his first stop once he got to town was Robert Church Park. And there at Robert Church Park, he got in on a mojo session. Poor old BB, his mojo was not working for him. He could not get a gig on Beal Street. So he had to go back to Mississippi, get a work on a large plantation down there outside of Indianola area. Now, a lot of people in those days that were his peers were still hand-picking cotton, but he lucked out and he got a job as a tractor driver, although he did not like driving that tractor. Nowadays, it might not be such a bad job because they've got air-conditioned cabs, and if you have a smartphone, you can listen to the radio and stuff. But in those days, it was pretty much one step above a two-mule plow. It was dusty, dirty, funky. He did not like it at all. And so BD just planned on coming back to Memphis, his very first opportunity. And when that tractor broke, he said, well, that's it. I'm going back to Memphis. And he did just that. And of course, he went back to Robert Church Park, got in on a mojo session, and his mojo still was not working. He could not get any gigs on Beal Street. So he was trying to figure out a way to make ends meet without having to pick cotton or drive a tractor. And he was listening to WDIA radio. Now, I mentioned that Rufus Thomas was a DJ over there. Now, Rufus came from a vaudeville background. He was a really
bigger than life type person. And he was really cool. And he's talking on the radio, and BB is listening, and Rufus is telling about a talent contest on the other side of the river in West Memphis, Arkansas. They used to have a great blues scene over there. And the radio station was sponsoring the contest. Rufus was the MC, and BB decided that he needed to go check out that contest, and he saw himself winning that contest. Sounded like a pretty good plan. Except BB showed up over there, and Rufus, since he came from a vaudeville background, if he didn't like you, he was going to get you off stage as quickly as he possibly could. And now he didn't use a hook, and he didn't use a gong, but he had a fake pistol. And old BB got shot off stage 7 times before Rufus would let him finish the song from beginning to end. It's pretty amazing how hard BB had worked just to become that overnight success that we all think of him as. Over here, Sun Studio.
Hey.
We're going to drive back around. You're going to get another view of it from this side of the bus when we go around this big block. I got to finish telling you about BB though. So he wins the contest. He goes back to Memphis, up and down Beal Street, looking for gigs. And he still can't get one. So he marched into the radio station. He said, hey, I'm the Beal Street Blues Boy. I won that talent contest. And I think it'll be all right with me if y'all give me my own radio show for my prize. And they kind of looked at him like, doesn't really happen that way, sir. And we will see you later. There's the door. Poor old BB. Luckily for him, this guy stopped him and said that he wanted to try to help him out. He saw something in BB and just wanted to help him. This guy was a sales rep, and he told BB that he had a product, and it was called Pepticon. And they were thinking about advertising with the station, but they really needed a jingle. And if BB could come up with something, maybe they would sponsor a show and he could be the host. So BB got his guitar and he took a big old sip of the Pepticon. And then all of a sudden he started playing all this BB King stuff, which I will not even attempt to do. And he started singing, Pepticon, Pepticon, its show is good. You're going to find it anywhere in the neighborhood. The sales guy said, that's perfect. And he presented it to Pepticon. They thought it was perfect also. Next thing you know, BB King's got his own radio show with Pepticon as a sponsor. Now, did I mention it was only 15 minutes long? That's not a whole lot of time. So basically, BB recording service was the first of its kind. He had with him a partner, a lady that worked with him at the radio station by the name of Miss Kaiser. She truly was his business partner. A lot of people just say she was the receptionist. She was a lot more than that. She was smart, and she was a good businesswoman. It was her idea to use the white tiles inside the studio, which gave it its historical sound, that fat back that we sometimes refer to it. She was the one that was at the studio when Elvis came in for the first time to record a song for his mother. Their philosophy was to record anybody, anywhere, anyhow, anyway. And they did just that. They recorded weddings, speeches, even funerals, and eventually musicians came along. Howlin' Wolf was the first artist that they recorded. And eventually, Sam Phillips recorded Rufus Thomas and, as we all know, Elvis Presley. Now, Sam sold Elvis's contract. I'll tell you more details about that later. But when he sold Elvis's contract, it made it to where he could go from renting that old original building to building from ground up Phillips Recording Service right here. Now, this is still owned by the Phillips family. They don't do tours. It's a 24/7 recording, Phillips Recording Service, or else with the engineer from Phillips Recording, Matt Ross Spang, who worked with Jason Isbell. Now, over at the original studio, it's a tourist destination by day. Some of y'all have the stickers, so you'll be going on that tour when we get done getting your mojo working. And at night, though, after 7 o'clock, they open up the studio floor. And if you're a musical artist and want to record a record, I highly recommend it. It's a great sounding studio still. Some of the bands that have recorded over the past couple, 2-3 decades, U2 did their Rattle and Hum record in there. Matchbox 20, Beck, John Cougar Mellencamp, Chris Isaak, Dale Watson, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, When Love Comes to Town, was tracked at Sun Studio. They also shot a great video outside of the studio. Ringo Starr's been in there. The music that Ringo did never has been released. I wonder if it will ever see the light of day. That's debatable, but a lot of great artists have recorded at the original Sun. And there's even a television series that's filmed inside the studio called the Sun Sessions, sort of like Memphis's equivalent to Austin City Limits, but no live audience. The studio is kind of tiny, and you can't fit a live audience in there. Now, I want to tell you about Sam's first artist and about why he sold Elvis's contract. When I say the first artist, I'm talking about the first artist on his Sun record label. It was Rufus Thomas, the DJ from over there at WPIA. Now, Sam really wanted to sign Howlin' Wolf, but Howlin' Wolf didn't want to be on the label. Sam would say throughout his entire life that was his only regret, because he wanted Howlin' Wolf bad. He said throughout his entire career, Howlin' Wolf had the most interesting vocal he had ever heard, ever. And sure enough, Elvis Presley, a lot of people would think that that would have been the coolest voice to come from Sun. Sam felt that when he sold Elvis's contract, it was enabling him to have the funds to make the investments in the other artists he had on the label that he wanted to make, to get the new studio built. And he also made a few other investments. But he felt, for the most part, it was the kindest thing that he could do for Elvis. He felt like he did not want to hold Elvis to his obligation with the Sun record label, and that relinquishing him of that commitment was going to make Elvis available to other labels that had more money to invest in his career. And it actually worked out perfect for both of them. When Sam got that $35,000 plus, he did build a new studio, and he made a couple of investments. Radio gave him the start into show business, and so he bought a chain of radio stations. And up until a few years ago, the family still owned them, but now they've since all been sold except for two in Sam's hometown of Florence, Alabama. Sam had a friend by the name of Kimmons Wilson, was a smart businessman, traveled a lot with his family. And in those days, the accommodations when you traveled with your family were kind of sketchy. And Kimmons just felt horrible about bringing his family into, shoddy accommodations. So he had this idea, and he hit Sam up to see if he'd invest in it. And Sam did. And lo and behold, we have Holiday Inns, the very first ever family-friendly hotel chain in America, founded right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Sam was one of the first investors. He used to love to talk about it at cocktail parties. He would often say, well, Nancy, I made more money on my Holiday Inn investment than I ever did in rock and roll, but it just wasn't as much fun. He loved to talk about that a lot. Sam was an interesting person, and if you ever get curious, you can Google him and find YouTube videos. He was a one-of-a-kind person indeed. Now, his first artist that he signed to the label, as I've said, was Rufus Thomas. He needed to find some songs for Rufus to record. So he's listening to WDIA radio, and he hears Big Mama Thornton singing a song called Hound Dog. Now, you might be thinking of the Rockabilly version. Big Mama wrote that song, and it was sultry, it was blues. The lyrics were slightly different. And she's talking about a no-good man, and she is letting him know she does not have a very high opinion of him. Well, Sam, when he heard that, he said, well, you know, I need to find a song for Rufus like that, but him singing about a no-good woman. And they came across a song called Bearcat. Unfortunately, Bearcat sounded a little bit too much like Hound Dog. And when Big Mama Thornton heard it, she slapped a $25,000 lawsuit on Mr. Phillips, and she won. She went on a shopping spree and bought her a whole bunch of fancy beaded gowns. While Sam learned a valuable lesson. You don't copy someone else's song and claim it's your own. Now, y'all tell me, does this sound a little bit familiar? Imagine Rufus. He starts the song with a howl, kind of like, meow, like a bear cat. And they start singing. You ain't nothing but a bear cat scratching at my door. You ain't nothing but a bear cat scratching at my door. I mean, I don't even have to go further. You know, they just didn't know. We had to learn things the hard way. Of course, Sam Phillips has the title as the daddy of rock and roll because he's the one that heard that sound the first time, recorded it, and made musical history. It all was because there was a band called Jackie Brinson and the Delta Cats. They lived in Clarksdale, Mississippi, about an hour, 15 minutes south of Memphis, depending on if you have a lead foot or not, up Highway 61. Well, they wanted to come to Memphis, and they wanted to record, and they had a lot of gear that they had to get here, right? And it wouldn't all fit in their vehicle. So they strapped it to the top. They start driving to Memphis, looking kind of like the blues equivalent of the Beverly Hillbillies with all that stuff strapped on, hanging off. Barely. They hit potholes and bumps on Highway 61. Things came unhinged. They just strapped it back up there. By the time they got to the studio, turns out one of the speaker cabinets that had fallen off that they had put back on, well, it had some damage. The Pearle cloth, you know, that covers the speaker, it was ripped up. And they discovered the speaker itself had a tear. Well, they thought, oh, no problem, we'll just tape it. It sounded rumbly. They tried to wad up paper, put it all around the speaker, pack it in tight, and it got even more rumbly. It was distorted. Like when you go to a drive-in restaurant. Mustard? No mustard on my burger. Well, it was distorted. The band was uncertain. Sam said, I like that sound. When you put an instrument through distortion, it's a really cool thing. And Sam recognized that. Now, the band finally agreed, except one guy in the band. He said, nah, I don't like that sound. I'll play, but you take my name off the credits because this song's going to be a flop. Dumb old mistake Ike Turner made. Because this song went way up in the top of the charts. Became a hit. Rocket 88. Where you heard the loudest noise they made. Let me introduce you my Rocket 88. Great, just won't wait. Everybody loving my Rocket 88. Baby, right around. Cruising on in style. Paid with a V8 motor and a modern design black convertible top, and the chicks don't mind. Sporting Lizzie riding around for joy. Let's just step in my car and don't be late. We're gonna pull on out about a 8:30. Go around the corner, gonna get us a fifth. Everybody in the car, take a little nap, and they're right around. Cruising on in style. Rocket 88, a little ditty about drinking, driving, picking up chicks in a cool car. That's the first rock and roll song ever. Now this part that we came into, this is Overton part. This is the part that used to only allow white people. They allow all people up in here now. Thank God. That museum right there is the Brooks Museum of Art. It was the very first art museum in the state of Tennessee. They put it here in Memphis because at one time they considered Memphis to be the cultural capital of the state. Of course, the yellow fever epidemic wiped out half of our population, and we might have lost that cultural status, but we still are the coolest musically, and we got the best barbecue. On the opposite end of the Brooks Museum is the Memphis Academy of Art. That's where little Amy Carter went to school when her daddy was president. And you know what? She had a fake ID, and she did her own grocery shopping. We didn't even have no men in black in those days. She went wherever she felt like. No problem. But I couldn't say the same for poor old Elvis Presley. Because this stage right here, which, well, I don't trust the weather. I think if we got off to look at the stage, it would start raining on us. So we're going to stay right here. But this is called the Levitt Shell. It used to be the Overton Park Shell. And that's where the very first rock and roll concert was held. It was a young Elvis Presley. But let me segue some. Elvis recorded that song at Sun for his mother's birthday. Sam wasn't even there that day. But Miss Kaiser played it for Sam. Sam didn't really dig Elvis's vocals, thought he was too much of a crooner. On July 5th, Sam called up Elvis to come into the studio because Scotty Moore and Bill Black were there and they needed a singer. So they decided to give Elvis a shot. Sam still thought Elvis was a bit too much of a crooner. The sessions weren't going good. He told everybody to take a break. Imagine Sam's flipping through his Rolodex looking who he could call to come in next. And then all of a sudden the boys, the guys that Elvis had just met, they all started just kind of horsing around, jamming like musicians do. And Elvis said, "Hey, have y'all heard this song?" And he started playing some of that race music that he heard from WDIA. Sam's ears perked up big time and said, "Well, that's the sound I'm looking for. Why weren't we recording that to begin with?" That's what they recorded. That was the 5th of July, and on the 30th, Elvis is on this stage opening up for Slim Whitman, the cowboy yodeler. It's the first time Elvis and his band gets paid for a public performance. First time he gets to wear his clothes he bought from Lansky's on credit in front of everybody. Folks thought that he was an oddball with all that grease in his hair and that pink shirt. This was billed as a hillbilly hoedown. And Elvis shows up wearing a pink shirt. What kind of cowboy singer is that? Elvis was afraid he'd get booed off the stage because a week before he had sat in with Scotty and Bill at a country club and he had gotten booed off the stage because he was not a country and western singer. Elvis was so nervous, they even messed his name up on the spelling on the posters. They had him listed as Ellis Presley. It was just shameful. But Elvis stood there on stage and he jumped into this song and jaws dropped because it was an R&B song. White boys didn't sing race music, but Elvis did. Elvis was so nervous he stood there stiff. Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right with you. That's all right, Mama. Any way you do, that's all right.
That's all right.
That's all right, Mama. Any way you do. I'm leaving town, baby. Leaving town for show. You won't be bothered with me hanging around your door. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Any way you do. So Elvis, you know, he sang first, the second, the third verse. Then all of a sudden he got so nervous he became flustered. The lower portion of his body started gyrating. His leg was fidgeting. He couldn't control it. He said, dee, 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 dee. Girls went wild. Dee, 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 dee. That's all right. Well, that's all right. That's all right, Mama. Anyway, woo! And the girls, they did. They were going crazy. They went from paying no attention to Elvis to all of a sudden looking up because he was doing those gyrations. They had never seen anything like that before. Meanwhile, the men folk are looking at the ladies going, well, dang, that Elvis Presley's just standing up there holding his guitar, fidgeting around. The girls like it. And I think a lot of those boys went and borrowed their uncle's guitar the next day that they knew was just sitting up underneath a bed or in a closet and had been for months, collecting dust. I think a lot of new bands formed that very next day. This park was designed by the same park architects that designed Central Park in New York City. It's got the golf course. We've got the Memphis City Zoo here at this park. And our zoo is cooler than your zoo, I bet, because we've got pandas. Oh, that's a big deal. We got panda bears. This last spring, man, we had a lot of births. We had 5 baby giraffes that were born, and we had baby hippo. They named the little hippo Wendy. She was, I believe, 67 pounds when she was born. Could you imagine? Ouch. Back to Elvis. After he finished that first song, he thought the crowd wasn't liking him. He thought he was fixing to be booed, so he jumped into a bluegrass song. Isn't that the saying? When I'm with bluegrass. Blue moon, blue moon, blue moon, keep shining bright. Oh, blue moon, keep shining bright. Oh, bring me back to the baby tonight. Blue moon, keep shining bright. In other words, I say blue moon up, and the day keep on shining. Shine on, that's gonna make me blue. Blue moon up, and the day keep on shining. Shine on the one that's gonna let me blue. Woo-hoo! Elvis finished up Blue Moon in Kentucky. The crowd went crazy. He thought he was fixing to get shoes and you name it thrown at him. And he goes running off into the wings. And he starts apologizing to all the promoters of the show. Man, I don't know what happened out there. I'm sorry. I let my nerves get the best of me. I won't ever let that happen again. I hope you invite us back because I sure enjoyed myself. But I'll be less nervous next time. I promise. And they looked at Elvis and said, what are you talking about? They love you. You better get out there and do it again. They want an encore. He went out and repeated those same 2 songs because that's all they had worked up for the show that day. Could you imagine that they only let him do 2 songs to begin with? Elvis did return to the show. It was about a year later. He had been at the Louisiana Hayride, the Milton Berle Show, Steve Miller Hour. He was doing pretty good. He wasn't quite the king of rock and roll yet, but he had become so famous he couldn't go to a movie without girls chasing him out to his car, trying to rip off his clothes and pull hair out of his head. Elvis would start renting a movie out at the theater after they closed at night. That way he and his girlfriend and his family could watch a movie without all the fans trying to, he just didn't know about all that stuff. The most famous movie theater that he rented was 1 block at the next light up that way. This area that we're at right now is called Overton Square. It's an alternative entertainment district to Beal Street. This room right here is called Lafayette's Music Room. A lot of greats got their start there. Billy Joel, Barry Manilow, Henry Gross, all performed at Lafayette's and made it in the South because of that. You're not going to really hear any blues music here on Overton Square. It's mostly your singer-songwriters, folk music, Americana. But they have a lot of great shops, a lot of wonderful restaurants. They used to do a bona fide blues festival once a year in the fall, but I think they're going to move it to a different time of year. Over here we have our milk factory. Isn't that exciting? Now that I got you looking this way, check out this brick building right there. That is Ardent Recording Studios. That is the largest recording studio in Memphis. It's got 4 completely isolated rooms. A lot of greats have recorded there, from the Allman Brothers Band to Stevie Ray Vaughan to Three Doors Down, Third Eye Blind, ZZ Top, you name it. A lot of great records came from Ardent, including Led Zeppelin 3, which had It Keeps On Raining, the Levee's Gonna Break. They took that Memphis mini song and they psychedelicized it. And it was actually mixed and mastered at Ardent. Now, what? Oh, he was? Yeah. We have a blues artist that is a friend of Eric's working at Ardent this week. And they've been borrowing some of his stuff. Nick Colossa, if any of y'all want to Google him, he's from Clarksdale, Mississippi, as I like to call it. Mississippi. I used to live there, so I'm allowed. Back to Elvis. Let's talk about more Elvis stuff. When Elvis returned to the show, he was headlining. They spelled his name right on the posters, finally. And his name was in the largest print. It was a Sun Records review. He had his label mates there opening up for him, including one young man that wanted to be a preacher. But he was going to preach in school in Texas, and he got kicked out because there was a piano off in the corner of the dining hall. And he was just drawn to it. And he played this gospel song, and all the students were getting into it. And all of a sudden it morphed into a boogie-woogie version of said gospel song. And next thing you know, all those students started dancing in ways that surely must have been inspired by the devil. At least that's what the headmaster thought. He kicked Jerry Lee Lewis out of school. He had to go back home to Faraday, Louisiana. He did stop in Nashville, but they didn't want him. That's a guitar town. He played piano. He read about Memphis in a magazine, heard about the great Sam Phillips, and he thought that maybe Sam would be able to help jumpstart a musical career for him. Well, he told his daddy, and you know what? His daddy, he liked to party some. He liked to partake in some alcohol. And his daddy said, yeah, let's go on to Memphis. That's a fun town. So they sold enough eggs, like from a chicken, to get the gas money. Nowadays, you'd have to sell the whole farm to get enough gas money, but back in those days, they sold eggs to get the gas from Faraday, Louisiana, into Memphis. The first stop was a beer joint called the Lamplighter. Jerry Lee went and auditioned at Sun the next day, and he got the gig. Sam Phillips wasn't there. Cowboy Jack Clement was, though, and he put him straight to work. And then eventually, Jerry got his recording contract with Sam. Now, there was another folk opening up for Elvis that day. He used to live here, and when this guy stepped up to the mic, he didn't realize that they had already introduced him. So he's standing there for a long time, and he's thinking, well, God, they're never going to introduce me. And all the people in the audience are like, is that guy ever going to sing or what? Finally he said, hello, my name is Johnny Cash. He did it at that show and every show after. I can't show you the windows to Johnny's house here because you can't see him from this angle, and we can't get the bus down the little alley without sideswiping some cars and taking out alley cats, and PETA would just not like it if we did that. So that's where Johnny lived with his first wife, Vivian, and he had a little baby girl by the name of Roseanne. Now Johnny, when he lived there, he still had a day job. His day job was he sold appliances door to door. Major appliances, refrigerators, stoves, vacuum cleaners. I mean, what a horrible line of work. Miss Johnson, you need a new television set today? Get that door slammed in his face. He was horrible at it. But he had a good neighborhood to work in. This area is called Central Gardens. It's a part of Midtown Memphis. A lot of old Memphis money living on this street that we're going to turn on to, which is Peabody Avenue. When Johnny opened for Elvis, did I mention that that was his second public appearance with his band in Memphis? The first was in the basement of a church playing for some older women that were putting together a bake sale. He goes straight from the bake sale circuit to opening up for Elvis Presley. I mean, stuff like that doesn't happen every day, but it happens a lot in Memphis. Yeah, it was a bunch of ladies trying to sell enough pies and cakes to earn enough money to buy a bunch of Bibles and send one of their missionary women off to Hong Kong so they can teach them folks over there. And it's amazing. Johnny goes straight from a churchman of the basement of a church to opening for Elvis. I mean, that's just amazing. Now, this is Peabody, as I told you. Let me tell you who's some of the famous folks that lived on this street. There was a mayor. Nobody liked him. His name was Boss Crump. Musicians hated him. He wanted to shut down Beal Street. W.C. Handy wrote a song making fun of him that said, if Crump don't like it, we ain't gonna have it here. If Crump don't like it, he can just go suck up some air. Now, Crump ended up liking that song so much he adapted it for his campaign theme, and it ended up helping him get elected. There was a real pretty girl during World War II that lived in one of these houses. And back in those days, we didn't have these things. We had wallets that we carried photos of our loved ones around in. I'm just unscientific survey here. Any of you men have photos of your loved ones in your wallet? Don't feel bad if you don't. See, it was just a different day. Well, this guy goes off to serve in World War II, and he forgot a photo of his lovely sweetheart. And he's bragging to all the guys about how beautiful she is, and they're like, yeah, you're making her up. So he painted her on the side of his plane, and she became famous all over the world, known as the Memphis Belle. This is her neighborhood. And these fancy houses, you would think that, you know, an outlaw wouldn't live in one of these because most crooks are associated with economically depressed neighborhoods. But this is the home of one Machine Gun Kelly. They say he went bad because the girl that he was hanging with bought him a Tommy gun for his birthday one year and thought it would be fun to rob a few banks. He gave himself away because he got so excited when they go in the bank and people would just give her money in this sack and they go outside. He just gets so that one, right? I always imagine Johnny, though, on these streets. Miss Johnson, how about a refrigerator? If you already have a TV, don't you need to replace that old refrigerator? What a horrible line of work. When Johnny first came to town, he had just gotten out of the military. And, I believe that house that's for sale there used to be owned by a, it looks like it's been vandalized since it's been for sale, but it's a beautiful house, and it's got a recording studio up in the attic. I'm pretty sure that that's a house, because and it's selling really cheap. It needs a lot of work, though. Anyway, back to Johnny. Segue from Elvis to Johnny. Johnny got out of the military. He wanted to start his family here. He had a sweetheart back in Texas. And he had a brother named Roy that lived here and a sister named Reba that already lived here. Roy worked at a car dealership around the street from Sun Studio, and he picked up Johnny at the train station. And Roy had the radio blasting when Johnny got in the car. And it was blasting on a station called WHBQ. And there was a DJ by the name of Dewey Phillips. He had a show called The Red Hot and Blue Show. Now, Dewey was the first syndicated popular radio show host in America. And that Red Hot and Blue Show was the thing that all the kids were listening to. And on that show, Johnny hears Elvis for the very first time, ever. But not only did Johnny hear Elvis for the first time, it's the first time anyone in Memphis hears Elvis, because Sam had just dropped off that record earlier that day. Now that's a totally synchronistic moment in musical history right there. And I'm not making it up, it really did happen. But what makes it a little less interesting is that I mentioned that Dewey was kind of insane. Mm-hmm. He was just crazy. He could say almost anything. And when he got that record, he liked it so much, he played it 14 times in a 2-hour period. So I don't know if Johnny heard it the first or the 14th time, but his mission was to go visit Sun Studios. He showed up, auditioned, playing some gospel music. Sam said, I can't make no money on gospel. You come back when you write some rock and roll songs. And that's exactly what Johnny did. He went home and wrote some rock and roll. Next thing you know, he's opening up for Elvis Presley. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. Keep the ins out for the night divine. 'Cause you're mine, I walk the line. I used to love it when you do that. And then you go, Suey! I didn't know what Suey meant. I do now. I hear the train coming, always rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sun shining, I don't know when, and I'm stuck in Folsom Prison. Woo! I'm just crying out. But that train keeps rolling on down the San Antonio. Yeah, Johnny Cash opening up for Elvis Presley. And of course Jerry Lee was there. Come along, baby, a whole lot of shake going on. Yeah, come along, baby, a whole lot of shake going on. We ain't faking, we got a whole lot of shake going on. Shake it, baby, shake it. 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 We ain't faking, we got a whole lot of shake going on. Alright, and shaking solo. Shake it, baby, shake it. Shake it, baby, shake it. We ain't faking, a whole lot of shake going on. Alright, now there's somebody else on that Sun record label that I have not even mentioned yet. But he had the first big hit, the first golden record on the Sun label, and it was not Elvis. It was Carl Perkins, yes ma'am. Well, it's one for the money, two for the show. I say you get ready now, go cat, go, don't you? Step on my blue suede shoes. Oh, do anything on my blue suede shoes. Y'all know the chorus, here we go. Blue, blue, blue suede shoes, blue, blue, blue suede shoes, blue, blue, blue suede shoes, blue, blue, blue suede shoes. Do anything on my blue suede shoes. Woo! Yeah! Alright, so we're going to segue from Sun Studios to Stax. I started to say Ardent. Full disclosure, I work at Ardent. Ardent and Sun and Stax had a great relationship with one another. Actually, every artist on the Stax record label, with the exception of Otis Redding, recorded over at Ardent. Most of the hit records, because Stax they first started outside of Memphis in a farming community. They had a studio in an old garage, and even at one time an ice cream parlor. And they decided, we need to move into town. So what did they find? An old movie theater. And they converted that to a recording studio. Now it was Estelle Axton, James Stewart. As I said, they combined their last name Stewart and Axton to get the word Stax. They don't need a concession stand at a studio. I mean, musicians usually want snacks, but Miss Estelle turned that into a record store, and it was called Satellite Record Bar. And all the kids from the neighborhood hung out there. Now, the studio itself, movie theaters are kind of slanted, so you could see over people's head. When you were recording in there, after they took all the seats out, you kind of had to lean over while you're playing the bass, you know. Now, Stax sadly went bankrupt in 1975, but it's reopened. It's now the American Museum of Soul Music. Right next door is the Stax Music Academy. It's a charter school, and those kids are pretty lucky to be able to go to school there. Some idiot politicians tore down the original Stax building, but it is built up as close as it could be, considering it's now a museum. Now, are you scratching your head wondering who was on the Stax record? If you ever saw a Blues Brothers movie, you know all about Stax. Now, Aretha Franklin wasn't on the Stax label, but she's a Memphis gal. She was born here. Her daddy was a preacher here. First 13 years of her life in Memphis. And where did she come to record that record that we all know is the signature, where she got her start? I mean, who does not think of the song Respect or Chain of Fools when you hear the name Aretha Franklin? That was recorded here in Memphis. Now, the other artists on the Stax label that I know you're familiar with, Sam and Dave, Johnny Taylor, Bobby Rush, Otis Redding, Booker T and the MGs, the Bar-Kays, Albert, Born Under Bad Sign. If you ain't got bad luck, I ain't got no luck at all, Mr. Albert King. And also Mr. Isaac, shut your mouth right on Shaft Hayes, Black Moses. That guy. Stax was just phenomenal. Rufus Thomas, who was the first artist on the Sun label, he left Sun, came to Stax, brought with him his daughter Carla. Carla is still kicking in Memphis. She's kind of getting together some songs for a new record. Carla had the very first hit on the Stax label with a song that she wrote. She was just a teenager and had a hit with a song called Gee Whiz. You cover that song, Gee Whiz? Man, that's a great one. And also had a hit with a song called B-A-B-Y, baby. So many great artists on the Stax label, but most people always remember Otis Redding and Sam and Dave. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sam and Dave. All their songs were written by the team of David Porter and Isaac Hayes. I've not mentioned David yet. David worked at a grocery store down the street from Stax, and he hung out at the record store, and he became friends with Miss Estelle, and he said, you know, I just don't like bagging groceries. I wish I could work here instead. She saw that he was such an articulate young man, and he'd be good probably as a lyricist. So she paired him with Isaac Hayes and said, y'all see what you can come up with. I mean, another marriage made in Memphis right there. Because that songwriting team, every hit that Sam and Dave ever had was written by the two of them. When the studio closed and Sam and Dave went to another location to record and did not work with David and Isaac, they never had another hit. Just goes to show you, there was a certain kind of magic happening under that roof. Now, David went to a school called Booker T. Washington, and the school is coming up on this side of the bus. You'll see it. Isaac went to the rival of Booker T. Washington, which was Hamilton. Rufus Thomas went to that school. Carla Thomas also went to that school. Many of the Stax artists went to that school. Now, I've mentioned Rufus a bunch, but I got to tell you, before I talk a little bit more about him, I want to tell you how one Sam and Dave hit came about. David and Isaac were working. The Memphis Horns, another one of those great Stax acts, was sitting down at the piano with Isaac. He's trying to pound out with one finger what the rhythm is that he wants them to play. It went sort of like da 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 da. He's trying to explain that, and David's supposed to be coming up with some words, and he goes up to the bathroom, and the next thing you know, Isaac starts hollering, David, what you going up to there to the bathroom for? Get on down here, we got to work on this song. And David hollers out, hold on, I'm a-coming. And then he opens the bathroom door. Next thing, you know, he has that little light bulb going off in his head, and he starts going down the stairs. Hold on, I'm coming. Hold on, I'm coming. And next thing you know, the next Sam and Dave hit. Now, I want to tell you a Rufus story. This is a personal Rufus story. My big sister sang backup with him for a very short time, but long enough for me to brag about it to y'all. Now, I was just a little kid. She was 10 years older than me, and Rufus is at our house because Mom and Dad insisted on meeting him before she went off. singing in his band. So Mom made a pie, and they're out in the living room, and I'm in my bedroom playing with my creepy crawlers. And Sherry comes back there and says, "Don't be rude. Come meet Rufus. You're gonna want to remember this moment." Of course, I was a little bratty kid. I go out there reluctantly, and Rufus said, "Well, if you quit being so fussy, I'll teach you the funky chicken." And I knew exactly what he's talking about because that was a hit song. All the kids at school was doing the funky chicken. And I might have been a little dorky, bratty kid, but I knew what the funky chicken was. So since he taught it to me firsthand in my living room, I'm going to pass it along to y'all today. And just pretend like this is yoga for the day, all right? We'll do some stretches. Here we go, everybody. You get the left arm up. I can do this for the whole tour. The remainder of the tour if you don't play along. Come on. You get the left arm up. Now you right arm too. Hey, now let me tell you what you're gonna do. Oh, you get the arm of the left hand up. And your feet are kicking. And that's when you know you're doing the funky chicken. And you remember Otis Redding, right? Yeah. Sitting in the morning sun. I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ship roll in, and I watch him roll away again. I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away.
Sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide.
Let's hear your whistle. 1, 2, 3, go. Without wetting your whistle, it is quite hard. That whistle's in the song because Otis laid that song down at the studio a cappella, intending on writing a third verse when he came back off the road. He went off on tour, was killed in a plane crash 4 days later. There were 2 survivors. They paired up with Booker T and the MGs. That's okay, I'll get a lift. Thank you. They paired up with Booker T and the MGs, and they put the music on that a cappella track. That was a horrible time for Stax because he was their superstar. But it got worse because here at the Lorraine Motel, Dr. Martin Luther King was gunned down. Now, y'all seem like you're grown up enough to know about Dr. King and his trip to Memphis to help us with the sanitation workers strike that was inevitable. There were 2 sanitation workers killed while on the job. It was a rainy day, much like today where it's sprinkling and then all of a sudden downpour. They had a downpour. They had no room for them to be inside the garbage truck, so they took shelter underneath the back of the truck and accidentally got crushed to death. Oh. Now, their families were not treated with the respect that a family should be treated over such a terrible loss. And so Dr. King came here to let everybody know that we are all equal, and those rights were not being treated respectfully. Right here at this fire station, police officers, after King was shot, had snipers on the rooftop looking for the gunman. He snuck away in a white Mustang right under their nose. He was across the big ocean before they caught up with him. This building right in front of the bus is where the gunshot came from, backside, second story bathroom window. And of course right there you see that reef where the Dr. King was standing. That's where the shot was delivered. The open ears, then you need to check your pulse because you might not be on this side of the dirt. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. Now, if Dr. King was sitting right here, he'd probably say, "Shut up talking about that, Nancy. Get on to singing some songs." Well, I'll do that, but I want to tell you, I talk about the Lorraine, even if he had not been shot there, because of its musical history. Stax and Son did not have air conditioning. It was hot. It was horribly hot in the summer. The artists inside were black and white musicians that worked together. They were friends. They were family. They'd go outside, though, and they'd get hassled by the popo because apparently back in those days, black and white folk weren't allowed to use the same bathroom. They couldn't use the same water fountain. They couldn't go in the same restaurant or hotel. But Lorraine did not discriminate. They had air conditioning. It was hot. They had air. They had a swimming pool. That's where all the musicians would hang out. Now you got happy musicians with air and swimming pools, and I imagine there's a couple of cocktails and they start writing songs like this. I'm gonna wait till the midnight hour. That's when my love comes tumbling down. I'm gonna wait till the midnight hour, when there's no one really around. I'm gonna get you and load you and do all the things I told you in the midnight hour. Oh yeah, you know I will. Okay, this is the Orpheum Theater. It's actually on the registry of haunted theaters. There's a little girl goes by the name of Mary that lives there. There's a couple different stories. Some say that she died in a fire. Some say it was a car wreck right here that resulted in flames. But Backbeat does a ghost tour. If you're into that kind of stuff, you'd probably like the ghost tour. And here we are back on Beal. Now some of y'all are going to Sun. Everyone else gets off here. I'm not letting no one off the bus until I sing a piece of a song that I recorded at Sun Studio myself. Because, you know, that's what I do. I'm a musical. Excuse me. Elvis loved his mama. I want you to say it back to me. Let's practice. Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
All right, there we go. Well, say what you will about the king of rock and roll, but he had the moves and he had the soul. Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama.
Elvis loved his mama. Oh.
Who did Elvis love? Elvis loved his mama. Hey, I love my mama too. Woo! Y'all give it up for Larry. Didn't he do a good job?
Yeah.
Y'all didn't notice those 14 people that tried to hit us, did you? Okay,
Nice
this
one.
right here, that was the original Lansky's. Those are the windows that Elvis peered through and could not afford those outfits. There's a little miniature Lansky's inside there that has some cool rockabilly clothes. Check it out. There's an Elvis statue behind us. Don't go beyond the rail because the Popo loves to give out tickets and invitations to the Glamour Slammer if you go beyond that rail and try to squeeze his Charmin. Don't do it. And see that tiger over there? Did you ever hear of the Chicago Cows? Well, we've got Memphis Tigers. It's the mascot for our college sports teams. So we've got 100 differently painted tigers all over town. You're going to see them everywhere. Thank y'all so much.
Well done, Nancy.
Hey, so I gotta collect your shakers when you get off the bus. And if you have